in the theaters than at home.
Very much so, because it's almost 3 hours long, and that's always...
We were actually just talking about with JT and April the other day, because they loved the movie.
Dakota Johnson stars as Susie,
Horror
a woman
guy.
who enrolls at a dance academy.
That made an impact. Did something.
Image director Steven Soderbergh boldly shot on an iPhone as Sawyer.
From WatchMojo.com, top 10 best horror movies of 2018. I've seen all 50. Let's do
Slasher genre. This franchise
this would have been number one then. Yeah. Wanting, like, some people have criticized.
Sending him on a mission to avenge his murdered wife.
I need your permission to operate.
But sure, why not? Because it's pulpy, it's gory, there is a body horror element, and there is hype to satisfy. You know, it's like we're coming back, we're... It's not a bad list. Not a bad list. Like the weird way it broke.
Without resorting to jumping zombies,
That is confusing.
I
didn't know that.
Producer J.J. Abrams claimed
First viewing, so I'm curious to go back for it, but I do think that it deserves a place on this list.
They know how to do it.
I'm sure they could have found some condoms. We gotta find out this.
with physical monsters, it's the inner demons our characters face that truly get
Famous.
Good atmosphere for sure.
you disturbed, haunted, and trying to decipher what the hell just happened. Grief and mental illness while blurring the lines between reality and
I
insanity.
feel like there's way more of an argument for Mandy to be on this list than Upgrade.
Creeps up your spine, gets inside your head, and
Unless they get really out there with it. You know, there are a million ways to look at
Other great clips from Watch
that hard to-
might not be for everyone.
and all of the
For
70s.
adventurous moviegoers, though, it's an experience unlike anything.
Thingy. Yeah.
Other sequels to follow this chilling, humorous, and well-crafted thrill ride.
But there was no
Birth that
scene
baby.
where they said, I want to have a child, let's get pregnant. And
Of time,
yeah,
this happened.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, because it's under the Blumhouse umbrella, and also, bye. To get that tattoo, do not take it out of your pledge for the month.
Very-
I'm like Suspiria and whatever, but A Quiet Place was...
Understand, right?
Subscribe and ring the bell.
Jaw was just dropped for a significant amount of time.
With the return of Jamie Lee Curtis and a fresh perspective.
Old
from
Woman
the
Lord. Like, we've had many a jump scare experiences, but I can't...
And for the number 10 pick, I just like this movie enough that I'm like, oh yeah.
Annihilation gives Garland the freedom to explore a new world that's both intimidating and strange.
And if it's not something that I end up loving, I probably...
Our number one pick. Here are some honorable mentions.
So,
Horror, because instead of...
Killed it maybe a little bit earlier or something. Because, yeah, like, I brought the whole audience to cool
not
she is.
man-directed this story. Because I'm kind of sick of that trope of...
Or feeling stale. Once again, retconning much of the established continuity, you fortunately into a whacked-out state. And if that's not surreal enough for you, the film also's premise.
Part of it.
Delivered and recycled.
Installment, I'm just like, I'm gonna have to take this one case by case.
Locking you on our page. Backlash for that? Like, some audiences really did not care for this
I'm
movie.
sure, yeah.
Because
It's fun.
it probably will, John. It probably will. Suspiria.
The character also brings a sense of unpredictable terror to the equation that recalls HAL 9000.
Of its own things, and I feel like even liking where the movie winds up, I feel like there's just too much that's effective and worth
Really genuinely surprised by the actual horror.
For the top 10 best horror film, else you'll see all
It's here and there that are very jarring visually, especially when you have like the kidnapping scene with the
a nightmare. It's difficult to describe.
I'm like, this is one of those movies, like, I really wish I caught it. Away some of the horror it was about was awesome, but part of that real confusing terrain.
Raise your voice at me. I am your mother.
It all builds to an ending that'll leave you.
here's what
I thought can take.
section of a video.
Seems that the film is not part of the Cloverfield franchise.
We do.
Overlord has a similar sense to the ones who left her for dead in a group.
Hi there, Reject Nation. I'm Greg Alba.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're
You're one of the people who's so smart that caught on to in a cinematography.
Circumstances
That's not
of
even
their
a
pregnancy.
guarantee.
I mean, no, but I would appreciate it.
My girlfriend watched the movie Revenge.
jump scares or other cheap tactics. This film is petrolaine sequel would be
Unless
anything to
they
scream about.
flip
While
them
the
around for
1978
audience
original helped-
satisfaction.
And based on a novel by Jeff Vandermeer, who pioneered
I get how there's horror in it.
Her jump scares of the year. Like,
Jaw dropper, yeah.
Yeah, one that-
lucid slasher movie that isn't
I
just.
think you could just watch it and be like, eh.
Yeah, even if you.
considering the recent breakthroughs we've made with robotic limbs. In Upgrade, director Lee went
Is that it'll pick up a cult life of some kind because it's pretty.
Quiet Place.
Guess Hereditary is gonna be in the scene of the screaming bear.
Mandy here,
Fact.
man who's given a new lease on life upon receiving a computer chip implant.
Don't be a dick.
I've thought about you a few times.
For everything. Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
And an effective use of American Sign Language. Becoming a box office.
Both of those, like it's insanely surprising to. I mean, I know they don't do cinematography.
Usually when I see your name on the patron page and then we start to
Don't need to see the other.
the smaller ones.
One that people like. What are some smaller ones that have Upgrade as a horror movie? I had that notification bell. Check us out, bitch.
Coralie Farjat's film never comes off as
I
manipulative.
haven't seen because that's where I feel like our comment.
amount of silence and tension and that movie feeling like you just ran a mile and got in a really heated
Yeah.
argument with somebody.
Premise: the filmmakers convey an emotional story through expressive performances, clever foreshadowing.
But like we only have TV show reactions, Q&As. John does music video coverage. I show my butt.
Can't wait to watch this again.
Insulting.
Ones that are great that get overlooked because they don't have the reach.
True. All right, so let's only talk about the ones we.
I am being held here against my will.
Number 8.
Mandy to me isn't a scary film.
Where a coven is pulling strings, both figuratively and literally. Intense conversation between our main characters to send us into shock.
Don't you ever!
Pretty high up on this list.
Following leaves your nerves.
Still do a very effective and very through and through horror.
All he did.
Yep.
Was he?
A vicious snowflake.
Hereditary the most because it's arguably the better film. But in terms of
Anybody, I feel like
I'm
there's
like,
wow.
boy, just watching the trailer.
You could just as easily sell me the fact that like they pulse, but every year it's like when I was working at Blumhouse, I had a much better idea of like.
It shifts gears. It becomes very action.
Yeah, this is another movie where I wouldn't.
Including ourselves, we're
Shop minimum.
stay with Patreon.
I'm sorry. I think about you sometimes.
To the point that its glory days should be long gone.
He's waiting for me.
Which it has its elements of that, but for the most part, I think tease here. That is one of the scariest scenes I've experienced. It's a pinpointing what all year, so I'll give it to them. Mandy, I see. I feel.
I have something.
So I
In a
think
year that brought
Hereditary.
us Revenge, where
Now
a
this
lot
is
of
the one
movies
I.
Let's do it.
Are we in a golden age of horror?
You know,
Yeah.
And then knowing what, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure they had people with sound and lighting.
From unsettling
Appreciating
Yeah.
to walk out of it and just be like, nah, I don't think anything's good about it. Yeah, we didn't even do a review, didn't see it. This is a movie I
contains some of the most graphic imagery of recent memory. It doesn't take much more than an
This
film
is a
about the
horror
horrors of war,
action
but
movie,
Overlord
okay?
is a different kind of
yeah.
No! Hippie times!
We're all under for
Right.
the more movies than you could.
Whether it's the breaking of a glass frame or the playful sound of a children's toy.
You know what this means, right?
Mandy is taken by a cult of hippies and a satanic biker gang. Red sets out on a blood
It's got its tension.
violence.
It's all a mess.
On the left and I Spit on Your Grave. The story follows a woman who must survive a hellish desert after
Being scared, I'm more like, what?
I feel like I'm the.
Call the last time other than Hereditary that had a moment where my jaw were saying it's not this like hypersexualized thing, like the humorous tones infused in it and stuff like that, which I think really detracts.
is not to be confused with the 1970s.
What happened?
Agree with modern take on films like The Last House on the
I don't know, but yeah, Hereditary. That's a movie that sticks with you, whether or not you love it or you don't.
Ultimately, that cyberpunk action.
Make it any easier. The shitty part when you're going through a rough time is when supposed to gotta give it to you. I say you're right. To me, Upgrade just kind of seems like because
about our latest video.
That's right.
Number 3, Halloween.
Don't be negative.
Hello, Michael.
Brain has the humor and badass action you'd find in RoboCop, but it's AI who only
Oh,
grows
damn, Jay
more
Farrow.
distressed when she's inexplicably imprisoned in a mental institution.
Terry is going to be number one.
Follow
Because
Hence.
up that embraces its roots without ever.
That would enable you to walk again.
that's not an action movie. Once Halloween's done, people are like, let's take a break. Annihilation. I'd probably put a little
It is also possible that she's simply
tumbling
having
down
a
the
break.
rabbit hole. That used to be my argument against the movie as well. Well,
That's what the movie's about.
enduring representation of women that doesn't shy away from uncompromising fundamental quality for any horror movie is to be scary above all else. Of creativity, ambition, and dread. Director
Just
Julius
because I'm going to peer pressure you into finally getting that real reach this year. There was kind of a little bit higher on the list. I think it's like one of the better films, but in terms of a whole,
Like Spell World, enjoying it, and I still hold a lot of those feelings. And I feel like movies like that's why it's further up. Very, very, very curious.
Yeah.
I've heard a few mixed things.
shame on you.
Is a sinister vibe to the future. So yeah, while I agree with you,
Hereditary, I see why people consider that number one. I see why people love her.
As the title suggests, she also takes out
Underrated movies of the year for sure.
number 7, Suspiria.
What horror movie did they leave out of this list?
oh, there are always a ton that come to satisfy everybody, and I feel like there's a certain amount of like,
Its equal parts homage and spiritual successor. Being raped and literally pushed to the brink of death, drawing comparisons to the most memorable action movie heroes of the 1980s. When his girlfriend horror film stirred up this much noise in 2008.
Because
Avery
of
goes
that,
all
people
out with the
think it's
ridiculous-
oh shit, there are all these horror movies. I didn't.
as if it was just the iPhone
Oh,
from horror.
yeah, weirdly, I thought this could have.
Grounded in reality, it feels as if Sawyer has been plummeted down the rabbit hole. Of course, it stars Nicolas Cage
We
as
have
most
seen
over
most
the
of these,
top.
huh? I'm out that.
Well, yeah, that's why I couldn't tell.
Although it can Annihilation.
We practiced safe sex in the apocalypse and it worked. I don't know. Yeah, I would need more context.
A genre known as the new weird.
Started about a year. To me, it's very underrated. Maybe because they put it out after a really rough time, and I can't imagine that the holidays. You don't get it. I'm.
Definitely one of its genres.
Is it?
Number
I would
10,
have put it like second or third on the IMDb.
Oh,
Yeah, I
shame
feel
on you.
ashamed. I watched this
Mister,
movie.
I watched.
Thirsty quest to exact revenge.
viewing experiences I had all year because
Like myself and John. Do you love him?
I love you, Eric Horseman.
You better
I love you.
to make this movie.
No,
It's,
no. Even the
there's
score
a
was just
Soderbergh.
GarageBand on. Mostly very positive, and this is like rape revenge is a genre where every single lot of smaller.
I'm disappointed for not watching. I'm disappointed in myself. Just
He invented that. Fuck
Like-
Tangerine.
they just do it to me. I wouldn't even think that like is Upgrade on this list. I just wouldn't think that.
I get where.
And whenever people
Videos. For this list, we're taking
of these movies, like the ones we're talking about, we've reviewed on the show. I was actually
When do I
shamed.
have 3 whole hours?
Shame.
Guadagnino's
Shame.
Suspiria is a beautiful descent into
Shame on
madness. Ripping tale of revenge.
Picking at some of the logistics of just the setup. Sure, you can find holes. Just the execution and the opposite end of the coin from you, where I'm like that much.
Fucker.
I want to see this.
You should have.
Just a bunch of silly tropes.
I do think number 2 and 1 are.
And I'm John Humphrey.
Listen, guys.
Should have.
Not. Yeah, there was some real week after Halloween. That's right when people want to.
Get to see this year,
Yeah.
And there are often.
So it's like people online going, "I'm so surprised."
What exactly happens throughout the Twisted Tale? What we can describe are the emotions it evokes in this enigmatic environment, however.
Then it becomes
Likewise, the film
fucking
itself
hard to
turns out
follow.
be 100% Unsane.
I heard this was great. Do abortions?
Well, I'm sure.
I thought we were supposed to watch that together, baby. You motherfucker.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day.
Grade.
Nubs, and there are inevitably just
This hit and critical favorite, few home.
Insanely unique.
really well told visual story. It's really
Although this material could have easily verged into exploitation.
war
Yeah.
before it even becomes anything sci-fi, and I feel like my hope for that movie. Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The 1-2 punch.
Films of 2018. Before we unveil,
Intense moments in there, and it was very jarring. Offered one of the best shock scare.
Yeah. Really?
You got a jump scare. It was. It's one of the most objects tattoo.
Yeah. At least in the handling. There are other.
Is it?
After each one.
I wouldn't say straight up, but I would say horror is definitely.
Besides, like, why would she have? If you want to just take that money for the tattoo and put it to increase the play,
Just kicking myself for not having seen like a bunch of where they're coming from. It's like if I saw Upgrade in the horror.
number 2, 18, winning a Primetime Emmy for The Crown and earning widespread praise for her supporting role in
surprised it didn't perform well. I don't know why. It came out like a week
here.
where I was like, I can't believe that just happened. Yeah.
It's movies that have that same reaction.
I mean, I'll give it to them though that one of the scariest. That's an option. I'm not saying you have to.
Just draw on yourself.
You could just do that and whatever.
It is a nightmare.
I don't think it's scary.
No, I mean there are moments. There are definitely elements of horror filmmaking at hand,
but especially when I don't.
Number 6.
Because I haven't had a very good finger on that
Of December, you know, and
Neo. This
should go online and see what Alex Garland has.
It's, I mean, like they said, it's a really
Number 1.
off as a creature feature reminiscent of The Thing. Nothing is as it seems.
action thriller is the genre I would put that under. If it's still even, I've heard a lot of very different things.
It probably
about
would have been better to watch a baby at this point. and I actually thought about it.
Now takes this setup and incorporates a body horror twist. Logan Marshall Green waited for him to bizarrely entrancing. Akin to the works of Darren Aronofsky and David Lynch, a film
Can rewatch. I remember really.
And that's what makes it so special and how they did it. I see all the footage. They clearly had a whole crew here.
Sort of what makes it that much more disconcerting for me.
Oh, right. It's not. Like, at all.
You could
I would say nominate every year, but this, of all the things this year,
To be a time of just so much love and happiness. So I can really identify
The film is not only a revelation of sound design.
it for a lot of people, but I still think the finale is one of them.
Taking a look at movies released in 2018 that follow
this that have an especially high standard to live up to, or some kind of high.
logical than initially anticipated.
Very much
This
so.
should not quality and overall impact.
I had a serious of visions.
People
when I was
keep calling Mandy a horror movie. Photography and Colette.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting.
I guess I couldn't come over one
Attracting sound-sensitive aliens that now roam Earth.
list you could have had for this.
I guess so. Yeah, with being satisfying to. I really want to go back.
This.
It appears that the message is forgiveness.
Every little thing. I think most people were advertises it like a horror movie, you know?
Not with the
Yeah.
tone. No, not at all.
I have not had an iPhone.
Number 5.
Towards the end, like, what is happening? I think it's a movie that sticks with you. I don't
Flick.
You know what, John? You're right. When you're right, you're right. And you know what? This time, I got
Had a phenomenal year in 2008.
care about you, and I want you to feel better, buddy. For this Christmas,
Stew, but yeah, I don't think it's a spot.
This out there,
in the theaters. I know it's directed by one of the best horror movies of the year. I mean, I know I haven't seen a couple of them.
Nazi experiments during World War II. Overlord will be notified about our latest videos.
But for Tony Collette, especially, that's a shocker.
Yeah, I mean,
In a different type of.
together was super unique.
They did talk about not
Get under our skin.
It was mutating our environment. It was destroying everything.
seen it. Having like underlying horror elements does not just doesn't qualify as a horror movie.
Living with dangerous people.
As with a dream, better yet,
Commentary would have its most strength.
Really shine.
I'm sorry, I just don't think of. And suddenly she's badass. But apparently this movie handled in it. I thought it might just be some schlocky, campy ass B movie.
Not see this movie?
Yeah,
Did you miss that performance?
Trailer?
Did
Yeah.
not catch the way that she drops Corin Hardy.
number 1,
There
Hereditary.
you go. Sure, it wasn't just the
But
iPhone.
that's how people talk about it. And more so than A Quiet Place, I totally understand why the year does come. Yeah, I don't. Let's,
exactly is
Can we?
this?
Should we?
Terrifying on multiple levels. For starters, it's a psychological mind.
Love the way that movie even starts out. The horror is just
Because they gotta be quiet. Identify with that. I'm sorry you're currently having some rough patches, but know that people out there.
5 military scientists who embark into the unknown. Annihilation starts off.
on genre label
Yeah,
for it.
but it's a great film.
Yeah.
We've done reviews for most.
Bikers and all that. Yeah, it's like there.
Number 4, Mandy.
A store I would be like, not dead on.
First, our protagonist endures and revenge feel all too real.
I'm out every year, and I'm always.
And she had a free T-Mobile rental at the Redbox. Like
This
they.
was-
25 film of the singly inviting. Although the film setting is overrun,
It's not through the 12-year-old boy's scope.
Yeah.
Like, look out. The only movie.
And then she was like, I wanted to watch it, so she watched Watch Mojo's least divisive list.
It was a little shaky there at the outset.
movie roof for that.
the LSD trip that submerges the viewer.
Spare, but I'm sure.
Woman gets raped, and this movie has received 0 Golden Globe.
Claire Foy has rattled.
You get night vision?
Highland Creek behaved behavioral health facility.
A lot of people were under the impression that it might, but not even the trailer way that doesn't make it insane, unsane, which everyone talks about it being shot on an iPhone, as if that.
I know that this is my neuroses.
Talking
There
about
you
something
go.
in the comments.
But I love you because we talk so much, and I really care. I love you. Subscribe to the Real Rejects. Click. So we're gonna show you it right now.
Surprise, as Annihilation was directed by Alex Garland of Ex Machina.
Not scariest, but one of the most tense experiences I've had all year. That whole finale.
This definitely proves you can.
Not me as much, but you.
A remake of
You
Dario
should have seen it.
Argento's first entry. Every shot of Panos Cosmatos' film is a stylish work of art. Brilliantly, every noise in this movie thus overwhelms the audience with anxiety. It's a war film that dives into straight-up horror territory.
Thought it was a very effective horror war movie.
From where I am now.
I really like this movie a lot. I might even put it on my top 10 list for. It's the only honorable
So
mention.
be sure to subscribe to our channel
an
and
honorable
ring the
mention.
bell to get notified of
Horror movie.
There's horror in it, but it would be like the fourth
It's
It's
genre.
not a genre to me.
Yeah.
but also a tour de force in visual storytelling, taking full advantage of the harrowing bring a modern cult classic.
What's not?
With American soldiers stumbling across
Everyone kind of treats it that way, and how do we know that it wasn't just an accident?
Yeah, all we know is that in the lapse.
It's original. I can't wait to watch this. Shame.
I am very anticipatory. The gourmet thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, Quiet Place was one of the most unique.
Bender that tackles
About you all the time.
Whoa, John, just be genuine.
It's an easier experience in the theaters than it is at home. But I've heard it's really out there and it does a lot of.
counting down our pick,
Patreon page. You better get it soon. And by the way, any money you throw down.
same name, which also took place on D-Day. Rather, it's more like playing
So with Lee Wanell directing it, that a lot.
Bulk if I saw it on the end cap of a horror section because it's in the sought out for the most part. I mean, when you start.
Makes A Quiet Place so unique. It's so. I think because of how confusing it is, and maybe. Do they know how to do it? Overlord, you guys check out our movie.
is like a wild
Hey.
This film was nuts.
Retconning a lot of the series at large, and it has to be a certain level of great.
Today comes from a man named Eric Horseman, who has requested.
I'm not finished yet.
Number 9.
Perhaps this feels like the most of just a flat out snub. Just like, what did you do?
Yeah, it's an honorable mention.
Yeah.
What?
First Man. She gave one of her most underrated performances, utilizing dark shadows and red lighting to create hell on Earth.
So much.
I definitely love you. We have long exchanges on Patreon.
think of the phone. It just loops.
One of our top reward tiers at our Patreon page is whatever video you request, we must definitely do and put up on the YouTube.
This is the best way to make a film.
And no film released this year better fit that criteria than Ari Aster's Hereditary.
Of A Quiet Place and then Hereditary is like, this is the studio version, and then Hereditary is like, at least for Tony Collette.
I think cinema.
Overlord. We've seen
Now,
Jane Shines
is
as a
it-
recently paralyzed
You don't wind up like
Channel already. Halloween. Weirdly, the one horror movie we haven't talked about. That's easy to pinpoint too. You
Yeah.
know, like easier than Hereditary.
plays a troubled woman.
Sure, put it on your list. Why not? But yeah,
True.
it's not a very visceral, very like you leave that.
Stop watching horror movies.
Everyone's
Yeah.
been gearing up from August to October.
Well, yeah. Well,
Colluding with my imagination to manifest my worst fears.
While the film is
But you tied it together.
yeah. Eric Horseman, thanks so much for requesting this, buddy. I know lately you've been going through.
She led the whole film.
Yeah.
Like holy shit.
Yeah, this is a good list. One of.
Page
seen
gives
a
his
fair
best
few.
performance in years as Red Miller.
Yeah, I mean at least
I mean, a horror movie.
$6 million man
Yeah,
immortalized the iconic Francis in this psychological horror story.
Nominations.
Like-
Scenes I've experienced all years an uproar against the fact that the movie and I really.
yeah. It's
All under the umbrella of horror. Judging them on their intensity, originality, and
Yeah,
gory,
woo.
we're finally given a worthy follow.
Hey guys, welcome! So, today I'm going to be reacting to Cookie Girl. Yeah, and let's just get right into it, okay? Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay, so there's a man staring at a screen. Okay. Yeah. And he's noticing there are like cookies on the table and little crumbs. And this is making him feel something, I guess. And the cookies, they're like all crumbled up. So I guess like someone ate them, which I think is a really not nice thing to do to someone's cookies. And they're like leaving this trail. And he thinks it's weird, I guess. He's making these faces. Okay, so he's like following the cookie trail. Like it's going to lead him somewhere. Probably to like the culprit. Oh! Oh, it's me! I'm right there. I'm in the video. I was just laying there. That's really fun. That's really fun. I had the cookies all along. Oh, wow. Oh, that was fun. That was really cool. Okay, well, yeah. I guess that's it. Well then, yeah, goodbye.